Welcome everybody to our podcast today. We, as you know, are talking about energy, and that's what we thought we would do with these bite-sized podcasts, is share with you more about energy, what energy means, and all modalities and different tools that you can use for our energy. So we have been doing this now for a few months, and some of you may be following us, and we hope that you are. But just in case, my name is Jo Dahl.
And I'm Amanda Brooks.
Welcome, Amanda. Thank you.
Welcome, Jo.
So, just for a bit of fun, every single week we do the podcasts. We are going to talk about something that we are using ourselves for our own energy. And so what are you using this week?
So what's been coming up for a lot of my clients who, funnily enough, a lot of them are in business, in the business world, and they're running their own business, or they're actually working for somebody, and lavender has come up loads. And so some are smelling it, some I'm just placing it on their body while I work. Others, they're putting it on their hands and they're doing like a sweep around in their energy field. But lavender helps lots with anxiety. It helps us to access our intuition, which is great for everything, whether you're in business or you're not, knowing what it is that we need. So lavender is great for that. Plus, it balances and calms the nervous system. So that's my tool. What's yours been?
So this week I've been using one of the amazing Australian bush essences. They're all fantastic. They really are. But this one is called Abund Essence, so it's about abundance.
Oh.
And so I've been taking this morning and night and just allowing it to enter my energy system and see what unfolds.
Actually, I do want to say something about that because that's like leading me on to something that's quite important is it's being open to receiving. And that's the big thing that we don't very often do, which does link in to this week's topic, doesn't it? Around what do we mean by keeping our energy clear and bright?
Yes, definitely. So that is something that we talk about a lot in the work that we do, keeping our energy clear and bright. But for you listeners, you might think, what on earth are they talking about? What does that even mean? So, Amanda, what does it mean?
I love how she asks me first. So for me, it's about, let's talk a little bit about the opposite just for a moment. So when our energy is not clear and bright, we can feel heavy, we can feel low, and we've all felt it at times. And often it's just fleeting moments. But when our energy is clear and bright, and it's, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, Amanda's in her own world because I'm like, everything is lovely and wonderful. It isn't always, but I tend to look at things from I suppose, with the rose-colored spectacles on. Yeah. So for me, keeping our energy clear and bright allows us to see the endless possibilities that there are for anything, not getting overwhelmed, but just being able to see things and go, oh, I could maybe try that. What about you, Jo?
So, yeah, I think along similar lines, when our energy is clear and bright, we come from an aligned place. We come from a place where the world is good. We can cope with anything. When we come from a place of what I would class as clouded energy, then it puts, like you used the lens just then, it puts on the distortion lens. So people may say things to you and you'll think they mean something else, or you'll take things the wrong way, or you'll just feel like nothing's working out. You know, Amanda just used the analogy there of everything being seen through rose-tinted glasses. It could be the analogy of the glass being half full or half empty, or over full or completely empty, depending on where you are with your energy. But I think one of the things that I would like to discuss with the listeners today, Amanda, is how can we observe within other people when they're walking with clouded energy? What kind of things can we observe?
Or from other, well, you know how yourself you feel when your energy is, shall we say, looking through glasses that are not rosy. You can notice other people that people, and we can see this a lot. People are arguing, people are barraging for the power. And very often that's because their energy isn't clear. And there is it's going to sound really judgmental, but it's not meant in this way, is that there's like a needing us to be acknowledged. And sometimes the only way we could do that when we were children is to shout the loudest. And so for me, what we're seeing out in the world is all part and parcel of this, is that we can see people being really bombastic. We can see them, sometimes it's the absolute opposite, where they're like little mouse and you can't get a word out of them. But it's the sign that their energy is an imbalance. What about yourself? What do you see?
So I think particularly we can use this as an observation in the workplace, and we can use it at home. We can use it with friends and family. And I think once it comes into our awareness as a listener, you'll notice it more and more. And you may not have realized what was going on before, but hopefully this will bring a little bit of clarity. So if people's energy, I use the word clouded because it feels the right way to describe it, then like Amanda said, they might be on a short fuse, they might be argumentative, they might be the opposite, they might be really tearful and burst into tears at everything that anybody says, even if it wasn't even meant that way. We see it within the workplace a lot, and at home, I should say, so not just in the workplace, but it's when people start to blame others, or they try and shame others, or they become really hypercritical of themselves or of others. They can be a little bit manipulative, that they're not quite coming from the right place. They can be really rigid in their thinking and not open to listening to other ideas, or there's no compromise. It's that way or no way. And there's other things that we can notice when the energy is clouded, like jealousy or all of those kind of things. But I think talking about it in the workplace, what would you share with the listeners about the workplace where this patterning can occur?
So what I found with a lot of my clients is that when they come to me, it's often because they are having problems in their work or in their workplace. So they're not being heard. Their ideas are being squashed before they've even been spoken. They've been put upon, been taken for granted. And what happens is then they get smaller and smaller, but also at the same time, the anger and the rage and the resentment grows within. But instead of it necessarily coming outwards, it turns inwards. And so we start saying that, oh, there's something wrong with us. We must be so stupid. We don't even know why they employ us. We don't even know why we're running our business. And that spiral goes down and down and down. So by the time people have come, they've been like maybe in that space for years, sometimes just months, but often for years. And it isn't then just a case of saying, well, no, that's not true. That's not really how it is. It's about healing those different things, because everything that happens to us in the now references back in our subconscious to any other event in our life that's not been resolved. And we've all been children. Yes. We've all put our hand up, miss, me, will you pick me to answer a question? And you don't get picked, and you don't get picked, and you don't get picked. And when that then happens in the workplace, or when it happens at home, and you're not wanting to be picked, but you're wanting to be heard, and it doesn't happen because that pattern clouds, and that acts like a filter that everybody else sees us through. So that's the thing about this energy. It's not just us is affecting, it affects how people perceive us. Have you found that?
I have found that a lot, and I think one of the things that I would share with you, the listeners, is we are living in a real world, okay? So there are all sorts of people out there. There's lovely people, and there's the people who are a bit challenging and not quite so nice. but we can't change them. We can't change the world. It's just not possible. Sometimes we try and change other people, and you can't. You cannot change other people, but what you can do is change yourself. So I think from what you've just said and carrying that on is, yes, okay, we've given you some kind of examples of when other people's energy is not clear and bright. But the thing that can make the difference with everything is by keeping your own energy clear and bright, because then the external imbalance of other people and how they are won't floor us. It won't knock us so much. It won't have such an impact on us. We won't react to it to the degree that we would do if we came from a clear, bright place. And so with anything, if we are triggered by somebody else's unclear energy, look within and see what perhaps has been shown or triggered within, and reflect on how you perhaps could clear your own energy and help yourselves to keep bright. How would you portray that to clients? How would you guide them? Because all the time we're talking about offering people tips and tools for them to do work themselves. How would you suggest that somebody could help keep their energy clear and bright?
So one of the things that I say to people is imagine this big golden recycling container in your energy field, and anything that's coming towards you and anything that's coming from you that doesn't feel like it's nice, just see it going into there. And I know that sounds like the most bizarre thing, but what I've noticed, and my clients love it, they absolutely love it. The first few times it was a bit like, right. But now what's happening is they're going, oh, and I put that in there and I put that in there. And then when I went back to look at it, it just felt different. I felt like I could see it more clearly. And it was, and I say it's because you then don't have as many of the emotions. Now, obviously, sometimes you need to have done the energy work to really be able to use it wonderfully well. But it works whether you've done much energy work or not. I mean, it's just a tool that again you can use. And a lot of people say, oh, but I can't imagine, I can't visualize. And I'll say, if you just close your eyes, can you see your recycling bin that you put your rubbish in? And they go, yeah. So use that. Because you're not getting rid of it, you're just transforming it. You're changing that energy vibration. And you just taking those few moments to actually do that is enough to take the charge out of whatever the trigger is so that you can deal with it later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it does need to be dealt with. Yeah. Well, what else would you suggest?
So I think, we've just touched on it, what's come up within you to be healed, and perfect way of addressing that. I think that there are other things that you can do. Obviously, seek professional help if you feel like you need some guidance and some support to clear your energy. Circle work can be a good one, where people gather together from a place of wanting to just be with other people. We're living in a very lonely time where, like you said earlier, you're not heard either in the workplace or even at home. But to go to a place where you can be with like-minded people and you're given space to speak without judgment or criticism, and you have time to be heard, that can make all the difference. And I think I'm sure, notice that with your clients. I do with mine. When they come here and sit in the chair and I just sit there and listen to them, it's probably often the first time that they have really, truly been heard with what's going on at that moment for them. Journal, meditation, reflection, all of those tools can really help us to keep our energy clear. What else would you offer as some tips here?
Well, I know you're a favourite of the cold shower. I'm not that keen on it, but it's like you said before. No, but you said before, you know, you can have your warm shower and then you can just do sort of like the last 30 seconds, or you can run your wrists under cold water. Again, that dissipates a lot of the charge of the energies that can be around us. And it helps to reset the nervous system, which is incredibly important. And then the thymus tap, like I was talking about in the last episode, you know, going up and around and just doing that for 30 seconds. That can be like a big, big piece.
Yeah. One of your favorites, I think, is to sing and to dance.
Well, yes. Even when, well, especially when I don't feel like it, to be honest, especially when I don't feel like it, I will put the kettle on and I will either have some music on my phone or I just sing. Thankfully, nobody's heard me yet, but it again, it shifts and changes that energy.
Yeah. And an aura sweep, I think
Yeah.
that's one of the tools that we both use a lot. You know, if somebody's kind of come, if I say come at you, but I don't mean it quite so bad as that, just, you know, just sweep your hands over your body and just kind of get rid of it and just don't let it land. And that helps you to keep your energy clear. And I think one of the biggest for me that has just come up from the conversation that we've just had is if somebody does come to you from a clouded place and you are feeling like you're in a clouded place, pause. If they say something or do something, pause, walk away. If somebody emails you and it lands at a clouded door, your door, don't respond. Walk away, sleep on it, as they used to say, and go back to it, having done one of these tips and tools, and you'll be surprised how different you feel going back to that place where you perhaps need to respond.
Yeah. And there's another thing that you will probably have noticed that you do when somebody does come towards you in the negative, you cross your arms over the solar plexus area. And a lot of the reason we do that is just, you know, like to protect ourselves, and so that we're not taking on board the energy. But it's like Joe was saying, take that moment to pause. We are now in a very fast world. When we were growing up, you wrote letters. So you wrote your letter, you know, it was going to be 2 or 3 days before the person got it, 2 or 3 days before you got a response. So you had time, but everybody thinks it has to be instant, and it really, really doesn't.
Yeah, the power of the pause.
Power of the pause.
Yeah. So, just to offer a summary today, would you like to do that today?
Okay, yeah, sure. You can see we really scripted this well. So what we've been talking about really is keeping our energy clear and bright without being the Pollyanna and everything's amazing, but also without being the Eeyore, like, oh yeah, it's gonna be okay. And that bit where you can feel, and doing that, stop, that pause, that reflect, because that power is in the pause. And I would love to think that we've given you at least one or two tools that you could go away and use and actually take that moment. And whether that be when you're at work, you can go into the bathroom and do that. Whether it be when you're at home or at school or university, because let's face it, in all of these places, there are times when we just need to stop and pause.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amanda. So next time we meet, we would like to share with you in more detail the energy benefits of rest and sleep and how important they are and why. And I think that that's what we are hoping to build with this podcast is the why. Why is energy so important? And why do we need to safeguard our energy and how? So thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And for now, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from her. Bye bye, everybody. Bye.